friends, welcome to Beautifully Bookish Bethany. Today's video is the start of a 48-hour readathon reading vlog. It's a little last minute, but I thought it would be fun to go ahead and do a 48-hour reading challenge, and I put out an open invitation on Instagram and on my Patreon and my Discord to anyone who wanted to join me to come and hang out in the Discord, post on social media, and basically spend 48 hours, so from right now, which is 10 p.m. Sunday night to Eastern Time, to 10 p.m. Tuesday night Eastern Time, to try and read as many books in a category as possible. This is pretty open-ended, pretty loose, whatever people wanted to do was cool. I am trying to get through some horror arcs that I have for review. This was the thing that I had the most of, and it's a lot of books that I'm just really excited to read. So for the next 48 hours, I'm going to try to get through as many of the following books as possible. I have 5 books on my TBR. I am not expecting to finish all 5 of them, but these are the ones that I'm going to be reading, and we'll see how far I can get. One of them is a book that I have started, and I am a little over 20% of the way into that book, so I'll probably finish that and then finish some of the others. The book I'm currently reading is Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. This is a horror novel coming out pretty soon that's about a woman who as a child was an actress in a cult classic horror film that people think is cursed because everybody kept dying from it. She has changed her name, changed her job, wants nothing to do with it, but now she's being asked as a journalist to cover a reboot of that film, and things start going very wrong. So far I've been enjoying it pretty well. Like I said, I'm a little more than 20% of the way into it, and it's kind of fun and campy. Not a perfect book by any means. If I was going to rate it right now, it'd probably be like a 4-star, but I'm having a good time with it, so I'm going to keep going with that. Then I'm going to be reading Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. This is the one I'm going to try starting tonight. I'm going to read a little bit before I go to bed and see if I can kind of get a start before tomorrow morning. Camp Damascus is one I've been super excited about. Chuck Tingle is known for writing kind of out there gay erotica with like inanimate objects and social commentary, but he has written a horror novella that I read recently called Straight, and it was fantastic, and so I really have high hopes for Camp Damascus. Camp Damascus is his first full-length, traditionally published horror novel, and it's a horror novel set at a conversion camp, a Christian sort of pray the gay away type camp, which seems very timely and relevant to my own interests as an ex-evangelical, so I think it's gonna be an interesting time. That is one that I am planning on reading. I also have Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, one of my faves. This is a new horror novel that we're getting from her that has something to do with the Mexican film industry in the 1970s, 80s? I don't even know. I should really look. She's one of those people who I will read anything from regardless of what it is. It doesn't really matter, but I do know this one is horror. It says that this is a meld of Mexican horror movies and Nazi occultism. That's right, this sounds so interesting. A dark thriller about the curse that haunts a legendary lost film and awakens one woman's hidden powers. I'm really excited about this. So I think some of it is set in the 1990s in Mexico City. I feel like it's going to be phenomenal. Silvia Moreno-Garcia never misses for me. So I'll be reading that hopefully for this video. Then I have Their Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. This is a YA horror / thriller that sounds really fun and campy. It's a debut, and it's one that I'm looking forward to. This one is being pitched as Ace of Spades meets Squid Game with a sprinkling of The Bachelor. Color me intrigued. It says it's about a Black teen desperate to regain her Ivy League acceptance who enters an elite competition only to discover that the stakes aren't just high, they're deadly. I feel like this is going to be really fun and interesting. I'm looking forward to it. And then lastly, I've got a horror anthology that I'm going to be reading. This is called Night of the Living Queers. It is a queer horror anthology that is, I believe, YA. So this is a collection of horror short stories by a bunch of queer authors. I like themed anthologies like this. I think they're really fun. And I know a couple of people who have stories in this collection too, so that's very exciting. So that I will for sure at least be starting on, and I'll tell tell you about the stories that I read as I read them. So this is the beginning of the 48 hours. It is 10:04 right now. So I'm going to try to read a little bit tonight before I go to sleep. And then I'm going to spend the next 48 hours seeing how far I can get in these books. I will try to do another update before I go to bed, and then I'll check in again in the morning. Happy reading. Editing Bethany, I had a clip that didn't get filmed correctly, so before I put in the ones that I do have, this is an update to say that I ended up getting completely sucked into Camp Damascus that night, and as you'll see, I stayed up way too late, but I did have some thoughts. Also, I should say, because I think I missed this in one of the clips, because I think the clip where I say this is missing, but the premise of this is it's following a young woman who's like 20, who is a devout Christian in kind of a culty sect living near this place, Camp Damascus, that is a conversion camp that has a 100% success rate, right? And she is starting to have some like feelings about a female friend of hers, and then weird stuff starts happening. Like she sees a woman who's maybe a demon and like vomits up bugs. And things just kind of go. This is amazing as satire of American evangelicalism. I cannot even tell you. I have so much to say about this book. I wish I still had the clips because I know there are things I said there that have now been lost, but hopefully what I have will be enough. Unfortunately, I'm not sure exactly what I said in the first clip, but here's what I have. Like, even though it's over the top, the vibe is very much my own experiences, and I can't look away. Normally I would have been sleepy by now, but I just want to keep reading it. Anyway, I'll check in tomorrow, let you know thoughts. Oh yeah, before I forget, I just wanted to note one other thing too. One of the things that is so effective about making it creepy is the way that the people around her gaslight her and make her distrust her own reality, her own memories, her own feelings. And you know, while I don't think, I mean, I'm sure there are places where it's like more explicitly done. I don't think this is as intentionally or as explicitly done in the way that it is in this book, but you do learn to second guess yourself and gaslight yourself in a sense, because you're constantly aware that you can be influenced by, you know, demons or Satan or whatever, and you can't trust your own heart, you can't trust your own feelings. And like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is obviously like far more extreme, but like little stuff like, wait, where's the door to my bedroom? And her dad being like, well, you never had a door. Don't you believe me? Come look. There's like no holes or anything. Did you want a door? It's like, oh my God, it's a lot. Anyway, yeah. Good morning. Man, y'all, I stayed up way too late last night reading. The way this book has a hold on me, let me tell you, I had thought, you know, I'll just read for like an hour and then I'll probably fall asleep, because that's usually what happens when I'm reading books late at night. But no, not this one. Nope, I had to like force myself to stop reading it because it was like almost 1 a.m. and I was like, I need to sleep and do things tomorrow. So the hold that this book has on me, y'all, I did not anticipate. How much of it did I read? Oh my God, I read 47% of it last night. Like, whew, that's a lot more, almost half of it, because I couldn't stop. Okay, I took some notes because, y'all, I have to recommend this book to anybody who is a ex-evangelical, deconstructing Christian, especially who grew up in American evangelicalism, because, y'all, I'm gonna say it, Chuck Tingle must be a former evangelical. We don't know who he is. It's a pseudonym, but must be a former evangelical, because there are some deep cuts in this book. And also, the way that I feel seen in this character is wild. Okay, so where to start with this? So number one, I had been thinking for a while, I was like, is this character neurodivergent? I feel like she's intended to be. There's a lot of things that she does that read that way. And then we do get confirmation that she is intentionally being coded as autistic. And that is really interesting. As somebody who is like neurospicy in some similar ways without maybe having official diagnoses, there were some things that she does that I really related to. Things like using specific Bible verses as ways of calming myself down when I was feeling overstimulated or anxious at that time, or like doing different like stimming things that like they don't want you doing, especially if you're a girl. I don't know, like the forced masking and stuff and people not realizing that was going on, that is really interesting. Okay, what else? Oh yeah, there's like links to American patriotism in this, and I think it does a good job of showing how closely tied American evangelicalism and politics have traditionally been. And I think people see this more now with what happened with Trump and the evangelicals, but even before that, for a long time, there have been really deep ties between conservative politics and the Republican Party and American evangelical Christianity, to a point that I think a lot of people don't realize. So it's interesting we get a little bit of nods to that in the book. Can I talk about this without being spoilery? Okay, when I get to a spoilery part, because there is something I want to talk about because it's really smart, but it is a spoiler, so I will put a spoiler note on the screen when I get to that part. But before that, okay, I wrote down a quote that just struck me from this book. It says, "I'd been so solid in my convictions, my faith, the steady foundation from which everything else was constructed. Sure, I was much keener to explore science and nature than my parents would have liked, but that was only because I appreciated these subjects as an extension of God's love." And I think what's interesting about this character is she's very logical. She wants to learn new things. She collects data pieces and information, and that's just like how her brain functions. But the foundation of everything to this point had been faith in God and what she'd been taught, and she's starting to see the cracks and the places where there are problems. And again, I think that's something I found relatable, because I think for a long time, I would say, I just don't understand how people can even, you know, question this, because clearly things all line up, but then, I don't know, this is not supposed to be a video that's all about like my deconstruction journey, but this book is just giving me flashbacks and bringing me back to a lot of things. There are a lot of deep scripture cuts in this, a lot of like deep American evangelical culture cuts in this book. So I think we can safely say Chuck Tingle probably is an ex-evangelical, which I love that for him, honestly. This is what he now does. Oh, she has a therapist, but her therapist is, you know, a Christian therapist, and it's questionable if he's got official degrees or not, but I don't know. There's a moment in the book where she decides to finally trust her own instincts, and that's a really big deal. And I think this is the thing, is because you are taught that you can't trust your heart. And I may have said some of this last night. I don't know. I was tired. I was like, it was late. I'm not sure what exactly I said on the video last night, but you're taught that, you know, your heart is sinful and deceptive, and you can't trust your own heart about things, and you need some kind of external validation. So you're not necessarily taught to trust your own instincts. So that's a big deal of her moving to choosing to trust her instincts in a moment. There's quotes of things like talking about averting your eyes and shielding your heart from like lust or things or whatever. And it's, yeah, it's just, it's really interesting. There's also really creepy stuff that's happening, but I am flying through this book. I can't put it down. It's so freaking smart, the way that it's really turning the tables on the way that evangelical Christians talk about homosexuality, especially. Yeah, is this book gonna be a new favorite of the year? Very possibly, because it is speaking to me, and I cannot put it down. I'm so excited to finish it this morning because I am planning on it. That's gonna be the next thing I do. Here's a spoiler section, so I'm gonna put a spoiler note here. If you don't want to be spoiled for Camp Damascus, skip forward or mute me until the spoiler thing is gone. But this is what he's doing, which is really interesting, right? Is traditionally there's been this discussion that, oh, people who are gay are like demonically oppressed and that's what's going on, right? There's been that kind of a conversation with the intent of conversion camps being to make them no longer oppressed by demons, right? At least that's in some sects, that's the idea. So this really flips it on its head, because as it turns out, what's really happening is that at this conversion camp, they're using a mix of like weird technology and rituals to link a demon to a gay person, so that when they start to think about a person they're attracted to of the same gender or about being gay, the demon appears and harms them. So they think they're being oppressed by the demon because they're gay, but really they're being oppressed by a demon and hurt by a demon because of what was done to them at the conversion camp. Y'all, I mean, is it a little on the nose? Maybe, but it's great. I love it. So yeah, listen. I do think it's always interesting to me when I read stories, though, that are about people who are lesbians and not, like, I'm bisexual, and it took me a long time to figure that out, but it is interesting when I read about lesbians. I'm like, it seems more obvious when you're sort of like, I think about an objectively attractive guy and I'm like, meh, whatever. I don't know, it's interesting. But one thing, oh, okay, this is the other thing I wanted to say. So one of the things she tells herself, right, when she's in denial about her own queerness until she accepts it, which that happens pretty quickly. That part of it's a little unbelievable. And I guess we're out of the spoilers, so I should take that off. But one of the things that happens is that she'll be noticing an attractive girl and tell herself in her head, oh my God, I'm so jealous of how she looks. And I think that's what we're told as kind of a gaslighting way of flipping the narrative, is like, oh, you're not attracted to someone when you're noticing them in that way. You must just have these strong feelings because you're just jealous that they are so pretty and are getting men's attention, and that's what you want. Like, because there's also a lot of misogyny tied into this, specifically when it comes to women. Anyway, I don't know. I have a lot of thought. This is this book, y'all. It has me in a chokehold. So it's great. I've been talking about it for a long time now, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to go finish this book and I will touch base. It is 11 o'clock in the morning. Wow, that went fast. I took my kids to camp and then my husband and I had a little coffee date. So I'm back home ready to read now. I didn't realize it was already 11, but it's fine. So I'm going to go read. I'm going to go finish this book. It's telling me how much longer. I think I have like an hour and 40 minutes left. That's what Kindle is telling me. Yeah, okay, 2 hours, an hour and 50. I have an hour and 50 minutes left in the book, so I'm gonna go finish reading Camp Damascus, and I will be back to update you once I'm done, but oh my God. This is what I get for staying up too late last night. I just took a 3-hour nap in the middle of the day. But I have been doing some reading, so, let me get myself together and I will update you on it. Okay, well that was not what I meant to do with my afternoon, but you know, I guess I needed it. I am a huge fan of sparkling water in all forms. Anyway, I will say I am somebody who is normally asleep between 11 and 12 at night, and last night I didn't really fall asleep till like 2. So this is what I get for that, I guess. I did, however, finish reading Camp Damascus, and I read the first 4 stories in Night of the Living Queer. Night of the Living Queers? I think that's what yeah, Night of the Living Queers. Before falling asleep for 3 hours. And now my kids are going to be home in like 10 minutes, so that's going to be the reading I do for a while. I also have a live stream with patrons tonight for a while. I mean, it won't be all night though, so I will get more reading done, but oh well. I did get a big chunk of reading done last night, more than I had planned. Okay, so Camp Damascus, second half of the book. Really good. I do think it loses some steam. It's a little bit long, and while the first half of it has this very fast pace to it, it gets a little bit quieter around the middle of the book for a bit. I mean, there's still stuff happening, but I think it could have been a tighter novel. I think that could be a valid criticism of it. I don't know that it substantially took away from my reading experience, because I really love what it was doing. It was interesting, it was nuanced. I like the way it ended. It got really weird. I think too, it was more scary for the first half of the book, and then at the close to the end of the book, there's a different kind of horror, or it's creepy in a different sort of way, I guess you could say, in kind of closer to the end. But yeah, overall fantastic. I think far better than probably what a lot of people were expecting from Chuck Tingle with what he was known for writing. I'm not really surprised, having read his novella Straight, which was also excellent. That made me very excited for Camp Damascus, and I think with good reason. I would like to get a copy of this book for myself. I think it's also just exploring some really interesting things. Okay, this is what I did. I took screenshots of text in the book that stood out to me that I wanted to share. So let me look at my phone, which was easier than trying to type it out. Okay, there were just some really good lines in this book. Here was one. It's okay to run a church like a business, because if we don't treat the message of Jesus like a Fortune 500 company, then non-believers will certainly do that with messages of their own. Religion is more than just faith. It's faith with a brand. Oh my God. Listen, y'all, as somebody who at one point went to a large evangelical church that literally hired somebody to help them rebrand the church. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think this is really hitting at something that is going on, especially with some of the larger evangelical churches. Like the satire, the zingers in this are so good sometimes. If you're ex-evangelical, oh man, you gotta read this book. It's really good. Here was another one, and again, this ties to a specific kind of church that I was involved in at one point. Really interesting. It's our duty as Kingdom of the Pine, that's their kind of like cult's version of Christianity, to spread the message of Prophet Coble far and wide, to keep his lessons and the teachings of Jesus firm in their deeper meaning, but palatable to an ever-changing world. Getting members of the congregation into positions of executive power is an important step in this process. And while some people might find this mixture of business and faith off-putting, for us, it's the whole point. For too long, religion has taken a back seat to other organizations that are willing to embrace capitalism. Organizations willing to admit that sometimes the ends do justify the means. We are in the business of saving souls, Pastor Ben cried out during one of his favorite sermons. Let's act like it. Y'all, I mean, obviously this book takes this idea to an extreme, but this is very much how certain parts of the church are right now. Seeing it satirized like this, I'm like, oh yeah. This church that I was involved in at one point, there was this idea that you need to get people from Christianity and from the church into these different spheres of influence in the world, into the heads of, you know, business and entertainment and whatever, and like that's how you change things from the inside. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh Lord have mercy, it's not good. Anyway, it's a lot. All right, what else do I have? I do feel like this is a book that is going to appeal to a specific group of people, but like, oof, the way it does it is so good. Or if you're just curious, like even if you don't have this kind of background, but you're curious about it, this is so good. This is one of the best satires of evangelicalism I've read. Also a horror novel, but like it's great. This was another thing that stood out to me. There's a moment where I think she starts to realize that part of what she misses, like once she's out of the church, not to spoil exactly what happens, but part of what she misses is a place to consistently connect with community. She says, there are things I miss about my old life, like community and family and just going to church on a day like today. You've shown me how someone could find love in that book on their own terms, but too many people around here have used it for hate. Saul hesitates. He's a character. You know what makes Kingdom of the Pines so scary? They may be ruthless and single-minded, but they're not doing this out of hate. At least they don't think they are. They're doing it out of a sort of ass-backward love. Like, this is the thing about this book, is it nails, number one, the thing that I think if you're no longer going to church, you can start to miss that sense of community. What I think has been surprising to me, though, is how much of those, the needs that I think used to be met for me in church have now been met by creating other kinds of regular community gatherings that maybe really what the need that was being met for me in church, or like one of the big needs, was having this kind of a communal get together, a space where you're regularly meeting with the same people and hanging out and sharing life together, and that there are other ways of doing that. But also the idea that a lot of these people don't think that they're being hateful. They think that they're doing this out of love, out of trying to save you. It's not really love. Like, this is not what love looks like or should look like, but that is the perspective. And yeah. And then just other lines, like there's so many nuggets, so many, like I'm just pulling a few here, but so many nuggets in this book that were really speaking to me about like what my this processing journey has been like. Okay, here was one. The point is, I was doing all these things because God said it was right. My whole life, that was always the motivation. But is the real genuine good? Is something righteous if you're doing it because you're worried about getting punished if you decline? Is it really good if you're just doing it because you're scared of what's gonna happen to you if you don't? I mean, these things are complicated. And I do want to say that not all of this is true across the board. And I think what you have in the character of Saul, which is interesting that his name is Saul, Paul, Saul, it's great. But I think in the character of Saul, you see what somebody can be like who finds a path to being in church and having faith in a way that isn't harmful. So I appreciate that about this book, that it's not like it's trying to say that like everybody who is a Christian, everybody who has faith is doing harm and is bad. Like, that's not the message. And like there are moments where there's a suggestion that like maybe you can find a balance between these two extremes, even if that's hard to do, and maybe you want to and maybe you don't want to, but that is a possibility. Case in point is another line. Maybe a little faith isn't so bad, a voice abruptly offers from deep within me. Find balance. To be fair, this all or nothing approach has been getting exhausting. The farther away I get from my time with Kingdom of the Pine, the more I'm realizing it's not so much the faith I'm upset about, it's the hate and fear disguised as concern and charity. Faith is just a vessel, and while it can certainly be used to justify truly horrible things, maybe I'm letting the aggressors off the hook by blaming faith itself. Yeah. This book was fantastic. I think once I sit down and write a review, this is probably going to be a 6-star read for me, which for my personal rating scale is a favorite of the year. Now, is it a perfect book? No, I think there are some minor things where you can tell it's an earlier attempt at this sort of a novel in terms of just like the pacing and the length, but overall that really didn't detract from my experience, and this is one I would love to revisit, and one that I think a lot of people, it is horror, so there are plenty of kind of disturbing scenes and it delivers on that front, but to me the places where it was most moving was where it's a narrative about deconstruction and about the harm that can be done by American evangelical Christianity. So, excellent book. I loved it. Then I did start reading Night of the Living Queers, and I mentioned that this is an anthology of 13 short stories. One thing I didn't know is I think they are all queer authors of color, which is cool, and they're all around a theme. So each story takes place Halloween night on a night of a blue moon, which I didn't actually know that this is what a blue moon is, but apparently it's a rare event where you have 2 full moons in a month, and that second full moon is called a blue moon. So each of the stories is a different kind of horror short story taking place on a blue moon Halloween night. The first story in the collection is called Welcome to Hotel Paranoia by Vanessa Montalban. This one I liked fine. It was 3.5 stars, I would say. There is kind of a creepy Halloween party taking place at a hotel that goes in an unexpected direction. Yeah, I liked it. It was kind of short. I wanted a little bit more from it, but you know, it was good. The second story is called The Visitor by Kalyn Barron. I've read from her before, and I've mostly liked her writing pretty well. I think she does some really interesting things. This one's a story about grief, and it's got... Oh, and the kids are back. Let me see if I can... I'll be back. I'll be back to talk about the other stories. All right, kids are occupied. My oldest decided to spend his money on a Bop It game. I don't know if y'all have played it. They came out when I was young. It's like bop it, twist it, pull it, where you like have to like follow the instructions to do different things in a pattern. It's like, I love this game. I really want it. Anyway, so they're having fun with that. Okay, so Night of the Living Queers, where was I? Okay, so Kalyn Barron's story is about grief, but with paranormal element to it. I would give this probably like a 4-star. I like this one too. Again, it's a little short, and it is hard, I think, to do a really good short story, horror short story. It's a real skill to do one that's excellent, but I thought this one was pretty good, and it you know, had an interesting ending. Follows a girl who is grieving the loss of her mom, and for reasons she spends every Halloween night with her dad. And yeah. I will say, at least so far, in general, all of the stories are about characters who are kind of casually queer. They have a girlfriend, or they had a girlfriend, or were recently broken up with one. It's not the driving point of the story necessarily. Maybe there will be some where it is, but so far that hasn't been. But it is an important part of their identity, and maybe woven into the story in interesting ways. I think so far my favorite one was the next one, A Brief Intermission by Sarah Farazan. Farazan? Have I read from her before? I think I've meant to, but I don't know if I have. This was excellent, 5 stars. It's set at a drive-in movie theater, and it follows a queer Persian girl who works there, and there are like weird rumors about it, and like, I don't want to spoil what happens because it's really short, but there are some ghosts, we'll say. There's some ghostly visitors from the 1950s who carry with them the values and morals of white 1950s people. And so this one I think is interesting because it deals with microaggressions and racism and homophobia and stuff, and it's really good. I thought that was a fantastic short story, and it really knew what it was doing with the length and the format. Last one I've read so far is Guested by Rebecca Kim Wells, and I like this one as well. I give it like 4.5 stars. It's interesting as it's got like this weird mix of like horror with like a sci-fi but paranormal thing, where there's a company that markets itself as providing special guests for parties and stuff, where basically you're being possessed by something that turns you into whatever character you want to be for that party, and then it's taken out and it's supposedly safe, but is it? It's very interesting. So that's where I'm at so far. I am going to continue reading the stories in Night of the Living Queer. I'm also going to pick back up with Burn the Negative, and I will check back in later tonight. Let's see how much more I can read. Final update for day 1. It's like 11:40, so I'm going to go to bed soon. But I've made some progress on both Night of the Living Queers and Burn the Negative. So I am 38% of the way into Burn the Negative, and I'm enjoying it. One thing that's interesting about it is it's got a little bit of a mixed media format. I don't think it's the best use of mixed media that I've seen, and there's just like minor inconsistencies in the book, but overall I'm still having a fun time with it. I don't know if I even like really explain what it's about, but this woman who was a child actress on this cursed film, who changed her name and everything and wants nothing to do with it, is a journalist now and gets assigned to go to Los Angeles to cover this reboot of it, and things start going really, really wrong. So this is one where I don't know how much I can really say about it because I don't want to spoil things, but it's interesting. It's fun. I think I probably know what's going on. I have a suspicion. We'll see if it pans out that that's what's up. But, you know, there's a lot of like weird, quirky characters, like this woman who's a psychic on set, and then there's like her sister who's jealous because she never got to have this film career and struggled with that, and there's murders and like things happening. So I'm liking it pretty well. Again, 38%, so I'll probably read a little bit more before I go to sleep tonight, and then should be able to finish that up tomorrow. And then I've read 5 more stories in Night of the Living Queers. So what does that put me at? 9 out of the 13, so making really good progress on that as well. I suspect I could probably finish both of these tomorrow morning, and then maybe one more book. I knew 5 was a little bit ambitious, and I'm right. I don't think I'm going to finish all 5 books. My plan is to start reading Silver Nitrate next once I'm done with Burn the Negative. So we'll see how many things I can get going. Maybe I can also at least start their Vicious Games. We'll see how tomorrow goes. It's gonna be interesting. The fact that I like fell asleep for 3 hours today didn't help, but I needed the rest. I'm gonna try to get back to a normal sleeping for tonight. Okay, so let's talk about the other stories I've read in Night of the Living Queers. I read Rocky Road with Caramel Drizzle by Kosoko Jackson. This one was great. I gave it 5 stars. It is rough though. It deals with some difficult issues. It deals with hate-related violence, homophobic violence. The main character in this story is a gay black boy who has been beaten really badly, but then there's like a revenge plot to it, paranormal revenge. So I thought this was really interesting. It was a good one if you like a, you know, revenge thing dealing with trauma. After that was a really fun one, The 3 Phases of Ghost Hunting by Alex Brown. I gave this 4.5 stars. It is a campy, fun ghost story where there's a ghost in a mall who keeps stealing people's pizza. And so on Halloween night, a couple of friends are out to try to figure out what's going on with the ghost and hunt it basically and stuff. So it was very entertaining. I enjoyed it a lot, and it was kind of like a fun, campy horror comedy type thing. After that is by far the scariest and most disturbing story in the whole collection thus far, 9 Stops by Tran Than Tran. Easily 5 stars, but this one has a big content warning. Oh, for like blood, and there's kind of a shocking moment in it that involves somebody like killing and consuming a rat. It's pretty gross. Yeah, this one does have really great use of technology though, and it's also addressing hate crimes. It is following a Vietnamese girl who starts to watch a video that's one of these things where the girl on the video is like, if you stop watching this, you'll die. And then proceeds to talk about her sister who was killed in a New York City subway and pushed off the railing. And this is, the thing is that there was a period, especially during COVID, where there was kind of a flurry of anti-Asian hate crimes, including murders and things involving the subway a couple of times. So I think this is related to some of those real things that were going on. So it's like very creepy and disturbing, but really well written. So interesting use of technology with horror elements. I thought it was really good, if a lot. Then we had Layla Mendoza and the Last House on the Lane by Maya Gittleman, who I am friends with, and I'm so proud of them for writing their first story. This was really good. It's about a Filipino person who is unpacking their gender identity as a teenager when there's this assumption that they will perform femininity in a particular sort of way, but then there's like a weird house that they go to on Halloween night, and it's a whole thing. So I really like this. Not necessarily scary, but I liked the themes. I liked the inclusion of Filipino cultural elements. I thought this was really good as a debut story. Some of the writing was a little less polished than you might expect from a more seasoned writer, but overall I liked it, and I think it's so exciting that they had a story in this collection. It's awesome. The last story I read so far was In You to Burn by MX Liu. This was another one that was good. It was like a 4-star read. Overall, this has been a really positive collection. I've liked all of the stories pretty well so far. This one is drawing loosely on a Chinese myth, and it's following two girls who have chemistry but maybe hate each other. It's like a frenemies. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I liked it. 4 stars. I've got 4 stories left to go in Night of the Living Queers. Love it. And then a little more than half of Burn the Negative to read, and then I'm going to start Silver Nitrate hopefully tomorrow. I will check back in with you in the morning. Good morning. I'm having my coffee, and while I finish my coffee, I'm going to finish reading Night of the Living Queers. I have read 1 more story in it so far, and then I have 3 more, so probably take me like 40 minutes to finish. And then later today, I think I'm going to do some reading sprints and see what I can get done. Last night I got to the halfway point in Burn the Negative. Continuing to enjoy it. It's definitely campy and like a little over the top. Like this isn't going to be a new favorite for me, but it's fun. I'm having a good time, which is really all I'm asking for. I'll quickly update you on the one other story that I read in the anthology. It's called Anna by Shelley Page. I gave it it's like a 4.5 star. I liked it. Babysitting goes very, very wrong on Halloween night when the kids find a Ouija board and there's a bad ghost in the house. So that was a good one. So 3 more stories in the anthology left to go. I'm gonna finish my coffee, finish those. I'll check back in. And I have finished my second book of the readathon, Night of the Living Queers. Yay! It is 10 in the morning, so I feel like I'm doing pretty good. We've got 12 hours left of the readathon, so we'll see how much more I can do. So let me do a quick update on the final 3 stories. Hey There Demons by Tara Sim is cute. It's about a boy who accidentally summons a demon to help with a poltergeist in the house, except the demon's kind of cute. And he has a thing for the demon. So more of like a little, like slightly spooky romance than anything truly horrific, but it was good. Then we had a more intense one, Save Me From Myself by Arya Shanabar. This one was interesting. It follows a South Asian girl, and the Hindu goddess Kali sort of answers her wish of not being herself anymore. It deals with like suicidal ideation and stuff and has like body swapping, so this is dealing with mental health issues. This one was more intense, but it was good. And then the final one in the collection is called Knick-Knack by Ryan Douglas. This one was cute. It was like another like cute horror story where this teen boy lives in a small town where the local legend goes that this clown named Knick-Knack died and now comes back and like steals children if you don't bring an offering to him. So the teen boy's younger brother does this and gets kidnapped, and they're trying to save him. Meanwhile, he's also going to admit to his feelings for his best friend, and there's like a little romantic element to it. So very cute, enjoyable. I liked it. Overall, I think it's a great anthology of short stories. All of the stories are pretty good. I think there was one that was like a 3.5 star read. I think the first one in the collection was probably my least favorite, but all of them were good and enjoyable and interesting and put a different spin on the premise with people from different cultural backgrounds and whatnot. So I would recommend it. It's coming out in August, if that sounds like your thing. I think it's fun. What would I give it as a whole? Based on my ratings, this is probably like a 4.5 star anthology, which is great. Normally, an anthology has at least a couple that I'm not a big fan of, and this one, all of the stories were pretty good. So, success! We finished book number 2. I'm gonna take a quick break because I want to exercise, and I don't have any audiobooks to listen to for this. So I'm gonna switch to my current audiobook, which is not part of this challenge, but but I guess I can tell you about it. I'm listening to Blood Like Fate by Lizelle Sambury, which is the second book in the Blood Like Magic duology, and it's fantastic. I'm really liking it. So I'm gonna listen to that while I exercise, shower, get ready for the day, and then we will keep going and see how much more I can read before time is up. I've got half of Burn the Negative left to go, and then I want to dive into Silver Nitrate. Everything took a little bit longer than I had anticipated, because of course that's always what happens, but I am dressed and ready to start doing some reading sprints. So I'm about to start those, and hopefully I can make some good progress or even finish Burn the Negative. That's the goal. I have 2 hours to do reading sprints before I need to get off and start getting ready to pick up my kids. Wish me luck. Been doing reading sprints. Reading sprints were a success. I finished reading Burn the Negative during sprints, which was very exciting. So did start Silver Nitrate. I've only gotten a couple pages into it, so I'm not far in yet, don't have a lot to say about it, but very pleased. 3 books complete for the readathon so far. I don't know that I'll finish Silver Nitrate before the readathon is over. That seems unlikely given that I've got to go pick my kids up and everything and have some things happening tonight, but I should at least be able to make some really good progress on it before this readathon is over and give you my initial thoughts on the book, which I'm pretty happy about. The goal was to try to see how much I could get through in 48 hours, and yeah, I'm pleased. So, Burn the Negative. I liked it. It went in a direction I wasn't expecting. We have kind of an unreliable narrator. She's got moments where she's like blacking out, and I thought something was going on that wasn't what was going on. What do I think about the direction it went at the end? It was, you know, it was good. It's not my favorite choice of how the ending could have gone, but I think it works for the kind of book that it's wanting to be, which is kind of a fun, pulpy ode to horror cinema, you know, and cursed movies. Complicated feelings about the mixed media elements. Some of them are good, some of them are a little meh and didn't necessarily add much to the story. So in terms of a rating, this is landing somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4-star for me. I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it. It's probably a 3.5. Honestly, it's gonna be like a 3.5. Like I had a good time with it. It's fun. I think if this is a premise that intrigues you, and if the idea of something that's kind of fun, pulpy, cursed film slashery type thing horror appeals to you, give it a read. It was a good time. Not mad that I read it, but not my favorite thing either. So on to Silver Nitrate. I had a lot less to say about that than Camp Damascus. Like when I go edit this, how much of this is going to just be about Camp Damascus? I guess we'll see. But I'm moving on to Silver Nitrate. I have just a little bit of time before I need to leave to get my kids. So I'm going to dive into that and see if I can get a few chapters in, and I will do another update later. I am back with an update. I've been doing some reading. It is 8:30, so I have about an hour and a half left to go in the challenge. I've made it 25% of the way into Silver Nitrate, so I wanted to do an update before I continue reading to see how far I can get before the end of the readathon. Clearly I'm not going to finish the book. I always forget Sylvia Moreno Garcia's writing always takes me a little bit more time to read. There are some books that I can just sort of fly through, whereas hers tend to be a little bit meatier and take more time to think about what exactly is going on, which is fine. So I finished part 1 of the book, which is really a lot of setup. That is one thing that I've noticed is most of her books take a while to really get going. I do think it's interesting because this is another book that has to do with a possibly cursed film, but whereas Burn the Negative is like this pulpy, fast-paced kind of horror story, this is a slower paced historical fiction with I think it's gonna end up having a horror element to it, but that hasn't really come in to play so far. We've got 2 main characters and it flips between their perspectives. They are childhood best friends. One of them is now kind of a washed up actor who's mostly doing voice acting work and has a complicated past. Then our female character is also in the film industry but doing audio work, so like adjusting the sound quality for films and commercials and stuff like that. So we're getting a lot of history of film, of horror film, of Mexican film, and this isn't super surprising. Silvia Moreno Garcia likes to include a lot of historical fact. The thing that is interesting though is that they have kind of befriended this old director who had a film that never got fully made, and he tells them the story about how the script was partly developed by this German guy who was an occultist and maybe a Nazi who had all these weird ideas about using film to do like magical rituals and stuff. And so they're kind of investigating like what was up with that. So yeah, I'm liking it. I always like her writing. It is a little slow to get into, so I'm like, okay, I feel like we've had this setup where we kind of know the characters, we know the setting and some of the background information, so I'm hoping moving into part 2 of the book things are really going to get going and we'll get more of the horror elements or like things that pique your interest. So I'm gonna see how much more I can read before 10 o'clock tonight, and then I will do one final clip rounding out how the 48 hours went. Editing Bethany again. One thing I meant to say and I think forgot to is that both of the main characters in this book are bisexual, which is especially interesting given the time period, and that is a somewhat important piece of their identities. Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, especially since I am predominantly reading queer horror in this video, and it is Pride Month, so it works. And that is the end of the 48 hours. I made it almost to the halfway point in Silver Nitrate, which is awesome. So overall, that means I read 3.5 books in 48 hours, which is fantastic. I'm pretty pleased with that. In part 2, Silver Nitrate definitely is getting more interesting, but we're continuing to get a lot of history. It is pretty wild because she's talking about the link between occultists in Europe during this time period and a lot of their ideas about like racial superiority and stuff like that. And so we're, you know, finding out more about the life history of this man who had lived previously, and then some weird stuff is happening in the present day in the 90s. You know, again, like most of Moreno Garcia's work, it's a little bit slower paced, it's taking its time, it's spending a lot of time building out all of the details and the history and like what is happening step by step. So it's not a propulsive book in the way that other things are, but I am really liking it and it is intriguing. So I'm curious to see where the rest of it is gonna go, but hopefully that gives you some idea of what to expect if you pick up Silver Nitrate. Thank you for coming along with me. Thank you to everybody else who had joined in for the last minute 48-hour readathon. I hope it was a fun time and people were able to get some reading done. And yeah, I got a lot of good new horror stuff read. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know any of your thoughts on anything I talked about in this video. And I would love to hear if you are interested in reading any of the books that I read. Are you a horror person? Did any of these spark your interest? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, it always helps if you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.